So, Alan, you're our guest on the podcast, Helluva Change, and I want to describe briefly. You're the owner of Renegade Classics Tucson. So, what is the store? What does it do? Who do you serve? What do you sell?
Renegade Classics is a motorcycle clothing and accessory store that opened in 2008, and we cater to the Harley-Davidson community, although we've expanded upon that a little bit over the years. We sell leather jackets, fabric jackets, soft clothing, helmets, parts and accessories, travel bags, rain gear, and we have a rather flourishing sewing and embroidery business as well.
Cool. So I've known your business for quite some time. Full disclosure, I bought stuff from Allan. You started in 2008.
Correct.
Okay. And over the years, your visibility in Tucson has expanded. From what I know, there's probably not a single biker in town who doesn't know your store.
Through much effort on our part.
Okay. So we have maybe 4, 5 different stores that look like yours. There are like 2 Harley dealerships, 1 Cycle Gear. That's
right.
More or less your
Yeah.
competitors in town. Okay. What is the total population that you serve? What do you estimate it to be?
The Tucson area is about 1 million people, and then you have satellite communities to the north, Casa Grande, Nogales to the south, Sierra Vista and Cochise County. So that adds a couple 100,000 more.
And what's in terms of biker population?
Hard to get your finger on that. It could be 20 to 25,000, I think.
Okay, all right. So, how were your beginnings? Just describe a little bit your beginnings.
I'd been in the broadcast industry for 30 years, both sales and programming side, and I ended up in the computer business working for Intuit that makes business software for companies, and talking to a number of businesses about point-of-sale equipment and accounting stuff, and happened to have a guy call up and tell me he was opening up one of these stores, and we kind of hit it off, and he called me back and said, we've syndicated this idea and we've sold a number of stores. Why don't you have Intuit fly you up to, I think it was Fresno, California, for our first owners meeting, and you can talk to these owners about point of sale. And I had looked at the initial stores and said, I used to ride motorcycles. I think this might work. My father also was in the clothing business. And I had worked with a lot of retailers through my days in radio and, seen how they were set up and how they advertised, and thought I had the skill set, partially from what I learned at Intuit, too, about being able to really handle payroll and all the computer things that have to happen in a store, where many years ago there might be 1 or 2 extra people in a retail store to do all that stuff. Now a sole owner-operator could do 95% of it themselves. So I saw the opportunity to take my skill set and the technology that was available with a need I saw in the community and roll the dice.
So you opened the store, and how did it go at the beginning?
Well, in 2008, the country was heading into a recession, so it was a little bit scary. But amazingly enough, we found a trigger about halfway through the first year that kind of gave a boost to our business. And by December, we were almost broke even the first year. And the second year, we were very profitable. And the third year, we were going up 20, 25% in sales for 4 or 5 years. And this is during the recession, too. So,
so the goal of this podcast is to give people, the audience, an actionable game changer. So we discussed that before starting the podcast. So tell us about what changed your dynamics, the main thing that changed the dynamics.
Well, I had worked with a lot of people, both writing and selling advertising, and I had noticed that the people that did the best were pretty aggressive on the advertising standpoint. So I came into that with an orientation towards you have to advertise a lot, and we had tried cable TV, and we tried little radio, and we'd been very good about getting the names of our customers so we could send them postcards. But and we put up a website right when we opened, and we'd experimented a little bit with paid Google advertising. But I had run across another guy who had told me, open up the gates on Google paid advertising and see what happens. And we did during the summer, which isn't a very lucrative time because it's so warm here. And customers started flooding through the doors. I mean, 5, 6 a day during August, and we expanded our budget on that. And by the time we got to December, we were, really doing a pretty big month, and we just kept our foot on the pedal there, and we got more sophisticated about how we did Google AdWords and got better advice and read some books on it. And for a while, I was actually helping the other stores get up and doing it, but it ended up being that I'm going for a micro market. So if I buy a radio or TV ad, I'm buying 100 people to get 1 or 2 in the store. With AdWords, where people are searching motorcycles or something, you can narrow that down and spend money to get just people that are within your bucket of interest. And that proved to be a real magic bullet because we're in a micro niche market. And
so talking about magic bullet, how did you fine-tune your campaigns? Where did you start from, and where did you fine-tune it, or where did you land after having fine-tuned it to the point where your campaigns were extremely profitable?
Well, at this point I was kind of reading my own books on it, but you just look at other people and you see that rather than just having one ad that pops up for no matter whatever people search, we found out that if we put a lot of pictures on our website, and if somebody searched for helmets and we took them to the page and we showed them pictures of how many helmets we had, it was very powerful. People would come in and say, well, I could see the inside of your store, and it motivated me to come down. And it just ended up being a very successful, highly targeted way. And we continue to do print advertising and some other stuff, but the point of sale equipment that I used to sell and I now use lets you create a lot of data. And when people come in, we're very adamant about getting their names and email addresses, so we communicate with them, but we had a little pull-down menu on that screen. How did you hear about us? So now you can sit there and say, well, I got so many customers this week, and you can even say how much to the people who heard about us on Google or through print, and you can quantize how many dollars each of those sources are coming in. It became very apparent that, Google was a big winner. And, if you reach somebody had told me early on, every biker knows 5 other people that ride. So if you reach one person, get them into the store, take care of them, there's a good chance they'll tell their friends about your store. And the whole key to any sort of business, and I learned this in the broadcast business, is you can never sit on the accounts you have. You have to have new business coming in. And through that computer program we use to manage the inventory and the customers, we have been able to put 30 to 32 people through the door, about 2,000 new customers a year. We've been doing that for 10, 11 years. It's a pretty steady number that we get through the door. But because other people move away or lose interest in the sport, you have to have that new blood coming through the doors, not only in my business, but in any business.
So if I understand well, your Google AdWords was a game changer because it brought in people, but it's really a number of digital marketing actions that you repetitively did that continued to expand your store.
Sure. And I mean, I would say using tech to manage your business and looking at the data, and that was something I was very skilled at when I was a national sales manager in the broadcast industry, because that whole industry runs on data. And when you go to advertisers, you got to say, oh, you really have my customers, you have to prove it to them. I had a real orientation towards numbers and looking at what works and what didn't work, and that extended into my inventory choices and what I decided to reorder and what I decided to discontinue ordering. So I've always tried to stay very close to the business and try to figure out which way the customers are going. And
so today you're using Google AdWords, you're using your email list. What else do you use?
Some direct mail. We still have a smattering of print advertising, and then we produce the largest event in Tucson every year that draws in about 900 bikers.
How do you make people aware of the event? I mean, you've been doing that for a long time, so people are aware that you have an event. But how
that one we do about 6,000 direct mail pieces, and a lot of emails. We have an email list now that's approaching 10,000 names, and We use that.
Do you use social media?
Text, social media to a given degree. But when you turn right around to it and you look at where the customers come from, they don't come that often from social media. They come more from Google.
Yes.
Unless people aren't reporting it, right? Sometimes we learn that in the broadcast industry. People would advertise on the radio and you'd ask them where they heard about it and they'd say in the newspaper. But it's just because customers just, they really don't know sometimes how they've heard about it. But it's always been customer referral, followed by Google advertising, followed by, gee, I saw you driving by because we're on a busy street. And those numbers have stayed basically the same.
Walk-ins.
Yeah, that whole thing. But there's just, the Google lets you get to people that are outside of some of the social circles of your customers. Because there's people that will buy a motorcycle and they don't know it's another person that buys a motorcycle and they don't really care. They just like motorcycling, and you got to get to those people. The old idea that word of mouth will get your business going is a fallacy, because you're not bringing in the new people. Word of mouth never works well enough, and if 2 out of 3 businesses fail in the United States, probably a good portion of that is that idea that, I really don't have to advertise. Everybody knows I'm here, or I don't have to advertise because word of mouth will get the word out. And just from my experience, 30 years in the broadcast business, I just can't tell you how many people I've seen gone down because of that mentality. And but I had
you're pretty active on your digital media management, basically.
Oh yeah. That's been our main thing that just never keeps working. It gets more expensive. Okay. It's not quite as efficient as it used to be, but it still does the trick.
Okay. And so we could say that digital media is really your game changer, whatever form it took.
It was.
Yes.
It was, and we did a lot of other things that, you have to do to be a successful retail business, which isn't an easy thing these days. We have a process that we go through, and we're very experimental, and we try things out, and we refine things, and we hire good people, and it's 100 things you do, but really, from the standpoint, until a customer walks through the door, nothing can happen, even if you do all that other stuff really well. So you have to have that new stream of customers coming through the door for any business. And
so let's be specific on one thing.
Right.
You're talking about store inventory. I know you have fine-tuned your inventory over the years, and today you are also well known as a helmet store. And how do you reap the fruits of the work you did on helmets, and how do you position your store in regards to helmets and the service you provide around it?
Well, helmets are something we really started to aggressively grow in 2012. And we were able to take our helmet business up, I think in 4 years, we took it up 125%. And we did that by a lot of customer service around that. We also put up a separate website for helmets that perhaps roped in people that might look at our store and say, well, that's only for Harley riders. Why would I go there to make a helmet or buy a helmet? And but on top of that, it was our customer service level and our level of knowledge in the town is far superior to anybody else. So a lot of that was kind of word of mouth too that has helped us. Boy, I went into Renegade Classics. They spent an hour with me finding a helmet. And we got a reputation where all the other stores in town, you'd walk in there and, they're the helmets, good luck. And we're there sitting. It's kind of difficult to fit a helmet. You've got to do a lot of things. And we have both the knowledge and the desire to do that.
Does that level of service help you to fight online competition?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you have to this day. If you're a retailer today, you've got to be over the top. And we pay our employees way above market scale. Our 2 key employees, one of them has been with us 7 years, the other year 5. And they're around because they're well compensated, and they have a knowledge base they've accumulated that is very valuable, where, the other stores in town employees come and go, and, that counts. Good employees, and many businesses, Costco is a good example, but there are many others, recruit and hold on to good employees by taking care of them. And but it's the customer service aspect is a huge part of our business.
Let's talk specifically about services around the helmet. you're fitting the helmet in the store, and you made sure that your employees are trained to fit helmets by the helmet manufacturers themselves?
Well, it's a combination of knowledge. A little bit has come from them and a lot from just doing it a lot. But we've shared our knowledge, and everybody in the store is very excited about selling helmets and likes doing it, and we're very good at it. And it gives us a huge competitive advantage.
Over online, notably.
Yeah, well, over the local people that are here, and it's very hard to buy things like helmets, shoes, and clothing, and anything that requires fitting on the internet. You can do it, but people come in that say, I bought and returned 8 helmets before I found one that fit. I mean, we hear stories like that occasionally. It's just, it's kind of a fool's errand to try and buy a helmet on the internet.
Okay. Why are you still in business? Why, did you go in business in the first place, and why are you still continuing to be in business rather than just, an employee someplace?
I was usually in management positions in the radio business, and the business was kind of small, so you had a fair amount of creative freedom to do what you wanted to do and take chances. Then I worked for a few years for a really large company, Intuit, and you're a lot more boxed in by that. And
so you like
I just like I'm kind of a jack of all trades, and I like to do everything, and I don't like somebody standing there telling me I can't. And I just like the idea of owning my own business. It's a lot of work, but there's a certain freedom there.
Okay.
So that's why I did it. And a lot of people that are my age, I think people over 50 are the biggest group that's opening businesses right now. So, and there are many things you can look at: age discrimination. You can say a sense of freedom, a tired of just towing the corporate line. But it's exciting, it's invigorating, and it keeps you young.
Cool. And one last question: if you had to define your main competitive advantage over online and other high street retailers, what would you say it is for Renegade Classics Tucson?
I'd say it's a focused selection that caters to the market, a level of customer service that people can't find anyplace else, and by the virtue of the stability of our employees and myself being there, I mean, the store has a face. It's just not a place that you walk into. It's got a personality. It's like the Cheers of retail stores. People walk in and everybody knows your name, and that counts for something. It really does.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.